How would you feel if you knew that you were dying and that you were in the active stages of dying and that your body was wasting away? It would be pretty scary, right? Wouldn't that be the kind of thing that would cause a lot of distress? Delusions, by their very nature, are distressful, and whether the perceived belief is happening or not, it can fill you with just as much stress as if it really were happening. Cotard's delusion is one such delusion that is very rare, very distressful, and very interesting. So I'm going to throw out a massive trigger warning on this video because it involves themes of death and other bodily harm. It is not for the faint of heart, so if you're not interested in hearing about death and dying, this is not the video for you. Cotard's delusion, otherwise known as walking corpse syndrome, is a specific type of psychotic delusion in which a person believes that they are dead, that they are dying, that their organs are being destroyed, that they are missing body parts, or even that they are immortal. It was originally described in 1880 by the French psychiatrist Jules Cotard, who noted that patients with this delusion were often withdrawn and negligent of their personal basic needs like eating and hygiene because of their strong belief that they were dead or putrefying. People with this delusion will deny the existence of a body part that is affected or entire portions of their body. They may deny their own existence entirely. And while it is incredibly specific to a person's body, it goes beyond even just that, because this delusion not only affects how a person perceives their body and their mortality, but also how they perceive their external world. And it can create a distorted worldscape of a person's environment and interactions with people around them. They may not only believe that they themselves are dead, but they may believe that everyone around them is dead and that they are in some sort of an afterlife of hell or purgatory, and this belief of this changed world can make reality seem very dull and muted. So I myself have had Cotard's delusion, and I have to say this is probably the scariest delusion that I've had. Actually, I wouldn't say that it is the scariest, but it is second scariest to my scariest delusion. I'll maybe make a different video about my scariest one, but Cotard's delusion absolutely effed me up. For starters, I had different varieties of this delusion. I had the delusion that I was dead, that I was non-existent, that I was dying, and that there was something wrong with my body parts. So I've had the full scope of Cotard's, and I know just how fun and awesome that is. I think my first experience with Cotard's was a series of deaths that I experienced, and I would have the belief that I was on fire and that I was burning to death. So I don't know if there was hallucination involved with that, but I do know that if I look down at myself, it was like I was on fire. It's really hard to explain how delusions are both non-visual and visual, because while with hallucinations you're seeing something as 100% real, with delusions it's kind of like the suggestion that is there. And the suggestion that I was on fire, whether I saw myself on fire or not, if I looked at my body, I knew I was on fire. So that's a little bit hard to explain, but nevertheless, I had the experience of burning to death and having the oh shit, this is my fate, this is my last moment on earth, and accepting my fate and dying. It's not something that I would ever want anyone else to experience. I also had delusions of being poisoned or buried alive. I had like a number of different ways that I had died. And again, I would have the entire process of beginning to die all the way through till death. And that was very, very scary. I remember very vividly lying in my bed in the hospital one time and getting to that very last snippet of I'm about to die and having like a full-on panic attack and like running from my room going, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, because I felt like I was right there on the precipice. And I think they gave me like some medication or something to calm me down, and then they gave me some ice cream. But nevertheless, I did have that last thought before death of, I don't want to die. Now, I did have a near-death experience as a little kid in which I nearly drowned and I was rescued by a lifeguard and resuscitated. And that was not quite the same. I didn't have the thoughts associated with dying. I was too busy struggling for my life. So with the delusion, it's interesting that I did have the full scope of feelings, and I had like the acceptance of dying, and I had the logical aspect of it without the physical act of dying. And when it had actually happened to me, I was too busy fighting to breathe to actually even register that I was dying. So I would say that they are very, very different fears. One is very much like internalized and logicalized, and the other, the drowning, was primal, if that makes sense. Then when I believed that I was dead, as I said, life became very, very dull, right? I didn't have purpose anymore. I didn't have anything to live for because I was dead, and I just felt like I was stuck in between worlds, and I felt like a ghost. I think that's a common belief to have with Cotards, is that you are some sort of a spirit or a ghost. You could believe that you just don't even exist, and it is very dull. It's very, very dull to be like a consciousness like in a dead body, I guess is how I would describe it. I felt listless. I felt very withdrawn. I felt pulled away. I felt disengaged. I felt like I was an observer in a world where I didn't belong. Then, believing I was in some kind of a purgatory, it was a lot like, I would say, the movie Wrist Cutters: A Love Story. If you're familiar with that movie, or if you're not, it is a movie in which a person, this guy, commits suicide and wakes up in the afterlife, and the afterlife is just like his normal life from before, except that it's boring and it's more dull. And that was essentially what it was like to have Cotard's delusion. It was like the afterlife was just so dull, it was so boring, and it was in every single way just like normal life, because in actuality it was, but it had lost all its flavor. And then I think one of the scariest aspects of this delusion was the body horror, I would say, because it very much was like having a body horror. I believed that my leg was dead and that I had this like rotting leg attached to my body. And that was terrifying because I had just this dead limb, and I would look at it and it felt like it wasn't mine, and there was just nothing like it. Like the disgust I had towards my own body, the fear I had of even just touching my own leg because I felt that it was rotten. It was horrific. So while I try my best to convey just what these experiences are like, there really is no understanding it unless it happens to you. And I'm sorry if it's happened to you or to a loved one and you know what that's like, because I wouldn't wish this on anyone. But at the end of the day, I just try to put this out there that psychosis isn't, this like demonic possession or crazy people. Like it's average, normal people who are experiencing horror beyond anything you could imagine. For some of us, for some people, psychosis is not a terrible experience, but for a lot of people, it is an unshakable horror that there is no comparing. So Cotard's delusion is a great example of an experience a person can have in psychosis that is life-altering and can be carried with you forever. Anyway, that's just a little bit about Cotard's delusion, which is an incredibly fascinating delusion. I'd be happy to go in depth about more delusions in the future. If you have anything interesting that you'd like to pitch as an idea for a video, I'm open to feedback. So thank you for sticking around through this video. I put up videos every Monday and Thursday, so please like, comment, or subscribe. I'll be back in a few days with Multitude Monday.